Welcome everybody back to the MedTech Jam Session with Chris and Mike D. I am Mike Donahue.
I'm Chris Lyons. Good to see you, brother.
Good to see you too. It's good to be back in the studio. I'm really excited about our guest today. This podcast is really becoming, at least for me personally, almost therapy. But for startup founders, particularly in MedTech, this is becoming a masterclass in how to do it. Not because of us, Chris, but because of the guests that we have. That's what makes this thing so fun for me personally. I think it's so magical. And today we have the professor, maybe. We have a surgeon who is not just a surgeon. He's an administrator and a professor. He's an inventor and a founder, an investor, an advisor, and a pilot.
Some heavy rock on this intro, man. That's his role right there.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I do want to welcome Dr. Kent Ellington into the MedTech Jam Session studio. Kent, thanks for joining us.
Hey guys, thank you for allowing me to be on this. I think what you're doing is fantastic. I've listened to your previous podcast and the dynamic that you two have. I love the chemistry and the questions and the probing that you do is next level. And I love where you've taken the guest and the audience, because the audience is on a ride with you too. And it's been great. And I love the creativity, and you're bringing what we need to this space. So there's so much going on, and I love what you're doing to allow other surgeons and companies and strategics and smalls and startups and even patients to listen to what's going on in the real world.
No doubt. And it's critical because the ecosystem, nobody's got a corner on our ecosystem. It's one that we all participate in, or we don't at all.
Yeah, perfect.
So speaking of going on a ride, let's go on a ride together. Kent, you've been involved for a long time, it sounds like, in developing technologies and product development, and as an inventor, as a founder. But before we get into that, give us a little bit of background on your clinical experience and your current practice, just to set the table. And then let's walk through the product development process from a clinician, inventor, founder perspective, because that's the sort of unique perspective you bring.
Yeah, gotcha. So I'm a orthopedic surgeon. I've been in practice for 15 years. I'm in Charlotte, North Carolina. I'm a partner of Ortho Carolina, one of the largest and prestigious private practice orthopedic groups in the country. And I'm surrounded by incredible partners within my specialty, which is foot and ankle. And then all my partners in the other 9 fields of orthopedics, sports, hand, spine, et cetera. And so it's an honor to serve along with them. And we have a very busy practice and heavy clinical volume, heavy surgical volume, and have the privilege of being able to train residents. We have one of the best orthopedic surgery residents here. We have the best foot and ankle fellowship here. And so we have 4 foot and ankle fellows every year. We have a total of 25 residents, 5 per year, and they get to rotate with us. And it's been great and really rewarding to have that a part of my career, to train the next generation. Not that if you don't do that, it's totally cool and everything, but for what I do, it brings another level of responsibility, accountability, and precision to my patients. Sometimes the patients are like, "Are you going to do the surgery?" He's the resident, the fellow, and so it's. But having another set of eyes in there keeps you honest. You got to have your A game all the time, and then we do a lot. I do a lot of research, clinical, and a little bit of basic science here and there, but mainly clinical, and that robust, busy practice in the environment of Ortho Carolina, which I'm surrounded by many orthopedic surgeons that are godfathers in product innovation and product development over the last 30, 40 years, specifically in the foot and ankle world, but also in joints and spine and hand, et cetera. They all do it. So it gets my creative juices going. And when you see other people doing that, and you're doing taking care of a lot of patients, doing a lot of surgery, your brain starts thinking about, well, what can we do better? How can we do it easier for the surgeon, which means it's easier and better for the patient? How can we do it faster? How can we improve our surgical flow? How can we improve patient outcomes? And it takes some reps to figure that out. When you start doing surgery, start thinking, start asking questions, and next thing you know, you maybe have an idea and you try to figure out how to take that from people joke, you take it from a napkin to a product.
Totally.
Better, easier, faster. Man, if you could, that's the trifecta, isn't it?
Yeah, it's interesting. When I think about the innovation that I've been a part of, and I do want to make a very upfront statement that we're talking to me and we're talking about my practice and my ideas and my products and my story. But one of the things I tell people all the time is you are who you are because of other people. I tell that to my kids. I tell that to my fellows. And surgeons, they could be cocky, egotistical people sometimes. And we're all who we are because somebody in high school or med school or residency or fellowship or a partner, they poured their time into you and helped us. And so I don't want this to sound like it's a pat on the back for me, because everything I've done has been a whole group of people to help me with that. And
absolutely.
And so it goes down to seeing a clinical problem and how to, like you said, make it easier, faster, better. And if I think about the things that I've developed, and I've developed over 100 different products, and I've tried to do the math on this. If you count all the sales of the products that I've done over the 15 years with multiple different companies, some are small and startups, some you've heard of, some you haven't, some are the big boys in orthopedics that have massive $100 billion market caps. It's been very cool to think about that the things that I've designed has led to easily over $1 billion, and I think getting close to that $1.5 billion revenue mark for the company, and which means we made good ideas. And the underlying theme, now that I think about it and have some perspective, is that I think that the main focus that I've tried to work on in my career in the product development world is exactly what you just said, is how can we make it easier, faster, and better? And some of the things that I've worked on, my claim to fame, I guess you could say, checks those boxes. And that's really cool.
Absolutely.
I love that. I love that. You're right. We are the sum of those who came before us and have poured into us and have been influenced by us. And usually it's somebody like yourself who has been an inventor and a founder who has probably been humbled at some point in their development, startup, investor, founder career. And so I appreciate that sentiment. So let's walk, if you will, Kent, systematically through the process of ideation, like as you say, napkin sketch, into product development through commercialization. As a surgeon, as a clinician, you have an idea. Give us some examples, walk us through some background or history of something that you've done and what lessons you've learned along the way.
Yeah. And so my experience has created a lot of incredible opportunities, but more importantly, they've created a lot of relationships and friends. And the thing that I think about when it comes to product development is, first of all, I think the world needs more entrepreneurs. And we need more people thinking outside the box. And I don't care. When people think entrepreneurs, they think businessmen. And that's cool. But in my world, I call it entrepreneurial orthopedics. And so we need more entrepreneurs in orthopedics. And that's engineers, that's orthopedic surgeons, that's business people in the orthopedic space, people like you guys. But we also need dissenters, because you need people on your team to tell you your idea sucks and or we got to make it better. And so what I've learned is that optimists, they shape the future. And one way to look at things is that do you look at things that it's more problems, or do more problems actually mean more opportunities? And because what I want people to see is that the purpose of this kind of podcast is I want the listener to come away with this thinking about, hey, there's more opportunities out there, and I want them to see what is possible. And so you need to change the way you think about yourself, and the orthopedic innovation process needs to change. And I want to talk about that too later, because I think the process is a little bit antiquated, and the way we've been doing it can work in certain situations, but the way I like to do it is more different now than I used to like it. So I think every implant that I've ever designed is based on the goal of trying to help a patient. And you got to figure out, why do you start? How do you start? What are you doing? And one of the things I think is important for me is that it breaks up the monotony of my just standard practice. And my practice is not really standard because, as I mentioned earlier, I got a lot of hats that I wear, but I do enjoy doing that in the relationship it brings. And to answer your question specifically, you got to be in it to win it. You got to deal with the frustration. It's not easy. It takes a long time. And the steps are, you have this idea on a napkin, and usually it's addressing some clinical problem or some surgical problem or an implant problem that you're, hey, like, why are we doing it this way? It should be easier, should be better, should be faster, like you said. After you think about that, you need to to kind of answer your questions about the steps. In my mind, after you have your idea, you have to assess the marketability of your idea. Okay. And then once you figure that out, and that takes maybe some standard common sense knowledge, plus maybe some investigation into the space, but working and talking to companies, or just trying to figure out through online what market is out there. Once you've attacked that, then you really want to look at concept feasibility. And then that is about prototype evolution and multiple cycles of designs and evaluation and testing. And oftentimes that's going to require an orthopedic company. But again, I think that the way we do innovation can change. And that's one way that I've worked through that. Then design development, then design verification, and then design validation. And that is like, hey, does this really work and meet the needs of the user or meet the clinical problem we're trying to address? Then you go through design reviews and then design freeze. Design freeze is when you and your team have said, okay, and this takes 4, 6, 8, 9 months to get to this kind of stage. If you're working quick,
and iterations.
That's fast.
Yeah, exactly. That is fast. Yeah, and iterations, right? Exactly. Iterations. Now, no offense to the big boys, and I love them because I've designed a lot for them, and it's great working with those guys. They don't work that fast, and so that can take a year or two.
Yeah.
And then when you get through design freeze, then you go through regulatory clearance. And I think the audience needs to understand that if you have an idea, specifically in orthopedics and implant, you got to get FDA approval. And a lot of times you can do what's called 510K clearance, where you get the piggyback off of another product that's already FDA cleared. So let's say I design a new ankle fracture plate. Well, there's a zillion out there, right? So if I design a new plate, I can just use a predicate, some other company's plate, to say that my plate is equal to or better. And that's called 510K clearance. And that takes about 3 months to get that cleared. And also this takes money. And so one of the things that I like doing is I like doing it my new way, which is independent of orthopedic companies, usually, not always. But the benefit that orthopedic company brings is dollars. And so if you don't use them, then you have no dollars, which means you got to do the dollars. And so you better be confident about that first napkin idea and that marketability of your idea, that step 2 I talked about. If you're going to start writing checks or getting money from friends and family, you better be pretty confident about that. Then after the regulatory clearance, then it's design transfer to manufacturing. You got to tool that up, and then you got to get it into the commercialization in your marketing hands. Then once it's released, it ain't over. You got to monitor, you got to deal with safety, handling problems, adverse events, what's going on. Did it really play like you hoped? And you may have to go back, like you said, maybe do some iterations and come out with a 2.0. So that's my answer to that question. And so in my head, I think about the product definition and the business case are important. You got your design inputs and your outputs, and then the transfer part, like I mentioned, and then your early release and surveillance, and then your full launch. That's the kind of summary of all that.
Hi, listeners. As a MedTech leader, you know how hard it is to scale up your sales team and prepare them for a successful product launch. If your reps are still digging through cumbersome shared drives and web portals, clicking through an LMS that no one uses, or relying on email newsletters to stay current, it's time for a change. Your reps, they're on the move. They need on-the-go content and a single source of truth. And that's where Convey Connect comes in. It's a mobile-first, company-branded app that gives your sales team instant access to training, sales tools, and company updates all in one place. At Convey Connect, we can have your customized, white-labeled mobile app deployed to the app stores in just a few weeks, so your sales team is resourced and aligned to win. So if you're scaling your team or prepping for a big launch, please check out conveymed.io, schedule a quick demo. We would love to show it to you. So now back to the show.
That's awesome. One of the things that comes to mind, and I bet you think about this because of the circles you run in, And that is there an outlet? Is there a really solid, proven outlet for surgeons like yourself that are forward thinkers, founders, inventors that can execute with excellence on their ideas while they're focusing on their practice?
There is now. So one of my companies, I've started a lot and helped start a lot. And one of the things that I love doing is developing my own ideas and whatnot, but I love helping other people too. And a lot of the ideas that I've designed, I purposely have brought on other friends and colleagues to let them be a part of the process, to one, mentor them and teach them, and then two, let them have a bite of the apple. And I don't like the concept of designing something and keeping it all for myself. So everything I've ever designed, I have shared in some way with another 2, 3, 4 surgeons. And from a financial standpoint, let's talk about consulting time and royalty. That negatively affects me, but I put my money where my mouth is. As I mentioned earlier, the relationships are what really matter. And it has been fantastic and amazing and so fun to meet with these other friends of mine that are all over the country, get in a lab, cadaver lab, and do work. And guess what? My ideas aren't always the best. And I bring in 2 or 3 other docs. And next thing, we went from like a pretty good idea to a stellar idea. And now we go out and we try to dominate. And so that's been really fun to do that. But to your point, in general, the classic way of doing this is surgeon has idea, surgeon calls orthopedic company A and says, here's my idea. What do you think? And then there's the little like courting and dating, and they're interested or they're not. And if they are, then you go through that process I mentioned. And when you do that, it's nice that the orthopedic company is taking the ownership of the financial risk of the project, but that comes with a cost, which is it's your idea, and you better be prepared at the end of the day, you're going to get 1% royalty on that. So if you think about it for a second and you think, wow, that was my idea and I'm giving up 99%. And again, that's cool. And I do a lot of that. I have a lot of that, and I'm very thankful for that. I don't want any orthopedic company to think that I'm not grateful for that. But the problem with that is your idea just got taken in a way. You're not paying for it, which is great. And then it also comes with the hamstring of that those bigger orthopedic companies are not that fast.
Right.
And so you may be stuck in a project for 5 or 7
years.
I've been in that multiple times. And talk about what have I learned the hard way. I've learned that delay is not intentional. There's compliance issues. There's regulatory issues. There's, hey, maybe your project funding COVID hit and we don't have any money and we can't spend money on your project right now. We're going to pause it for a year or two. And so
had a bad quarter, so we got to slow everything down.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah. When the Wall Street doesn't like your share price, the CEO is going to start cutting budgets, right? And so that might happen, and that makes sense. And so there's a good and a bad. And so to answer your question, I started a company called MedTech Innovate. I started it specifically to help other doctors, mainly surgeons, not all of them, to help them get their idea to the market. And what we're able to offer to inventors is the ability to evaluate your idea quickly, give you that feedback that I talked about. What's the marketability? Can we do this? Can we validate it? Can we make some prototypes? And we can do this quickly. Like you bring me an idea, I can have you a prototype in 2 or 3 weeks versus 6 or 12 months. And then we figure out how we're going to work together, and we can develop a product quickly for you. And right now we're not in the game of charging surgeons and doctors for our time. We try to work on an equity agreement where we'll do sweat equity and say, look, we'll do all this work with you and for you, but if we make something and it works and we want to go sell it to company A down the road, we want to be a part of that M&A transaction. And so that's been fun to be able to change the script of bringing new products to the market way faster. And the big boys, they'll tell you this directly, they don't really innovate internally anymore. They go out and acquire new technology. So I want to be the breadbasket for their new technology.
Well, that was going to be my question. Where do you see the next batch, let's call it, of new products, new solutions, new innovations coming from, if not from the big strategics? It's going to come from these sort of incubators. Was that how you might define yourself? Let's unpack that a little bit.
Yeah. So I do think, and again, I'm not trying to talk poorly of the big boys, again, because they'll tell you this is their business play anyway. And I just want to be able to take advantage of that. But I think innovation is going to be through startup companies, yes, or maybe this little think tank, I call it the Shark Tank of orthopedics, or incubators, like you're saying. I think it's a great word. I think that's where they're going to go fishing. And orthopedics is interesting. Like, what else is going to be made? Like, is really the next total hip going to be better than anybody else's? Is the next pedicle screw better? Is the next? It's just like, if you just go down, we've made such tremendous advancements in orthopedics from hardware standpoint. I don't know, like what are we really going to do? And so I think that the future of orthopedics and innovation is going to be truly novel stuff, not just another total hip or another whatever it is. And I don't do joints at all. I'm not picking on joint guys, but
another ankle plate,
another wrist, just a radius fracture plate. There's 90 of them out there. I don't think that's going to be it. I think it's going to be truly groundbreaking things. And I'm trying to work on some of that myself. And then I think that technology, AI, AR, VR, robotics is going to be where the explosion is going to happen.
Yes. So let me ask you this one, Kent. Do you think that if we think about the patient, right, let's just go all the way down to why we're all in this. Earlier continuum of care is where I think a lot of the novelty can become, especially for OA-based patients, as we think about that. Because as I look across the board, even some of my own clients that I've got are filling gaps earlier in the continuum to eventually, hopefully, push off that total hip or that ankle or that whatever. What do you think?
Yeah, I guess the first thing I think of is what cool, innovative things that are out there that we can offer patients non-operative treatment to put off their surgery for at least a little bit, or maybe even avoid it. And in general, that's kind of like, and what we thought about is biologics, whether it's PRPs and stem cells and HA injections. And those things have a role. I use them in my practice selectively. They're not the magic bullet.
Right.
Unfortunately, a lot of patients have been bamboozled by some scrupulous doctors, I think, that take advantage of these situations. And there's new bracing techniques. There's ways to offload arthritic painful joints. There's, I think, ways that we're going to be able to use robots in our personal life that may help patients be able to handle their arthritic shoulder or wrist or ankle better. And it sounds crazy and like the Jetsons, but I think robots are going to be a part of our daily life way faster than we think. And and we got the Roomba, the thing that zips around your house and vacuums, and that's just like nothing. That's going to be next level.
In the bucket.
Yeah, you know, but already your car can drive itself. It's pretty wild. And in orthopedics, we're using robots. My joint colleagues, it's funny, 10 years ago, maybe 5, they were adamant and made fun of and were absolutely against. Oh my gosh, they were, no way is a robot going to be in my OR. And now they all use them, and they all use them and they love them. And they also use it to market themselves that, hey, I use a robot, so I'm better.
That's
and
right.
So, and that's going to happen in other parts of orthopedics. They use navigation and spine. I'm a part of a company that's a new 3D printed bracing company, and I'm helping another company create a robot that does a total ankle replacement. I'm working with one of the big boys, and we're working with using AI and custom making implants for the patient. It's like maybe this concept of having this big tray on the table in the OR with 100 plates and 1,000 screws for me to fix an ankle fracture. That's the way it's the way we always done it. But there's a technology. Yeah, there's a technology that exists right now, and I'm working with two companies that are doing this right now, evaluating this. This is a part of their business plan. And I have been in the lab and I've done this where you take an X-ray or a CAT scan and they can print a fibula plate and give you 9 screws and you fix your ankle fracture with that and you're done. And it's cheaper because it's 3D printed and it's on site or shipped to you. And the strategics love this idea because they spend tens and tens of millions of dollars every year on making these big sets and shipping them all over the country on FedEx. Yeah. You know, these guys, their shipping bill, FedEx bill for Stryker and Zimmer has got to be through the roof. And so they're going to ship something to this case, and all you're going to use is this one plate and 6 screws.
Yeah.
If you think about the supply chain and a business case for that is terrible.
It is
and
terrible.
The big boys are figuring it out. And I think the way that we take care of patients in 5 years is going to be different than it is right now.
I would
There's
agree.
a confluence of technologies from 3D printing to robotics and AI and the way that imaging is going to be processed so much more quickly, 2D to 3D, point of care. Those are the things I think that are exciting because it's almost like, how did we get to be able to do this streaming podcast now? Well, it took cheap storage and broadband internet. Before then, this wasn't possible. So I'm curious, what do we think is going to be possible with, again, more advanced robotics, more advanced AI, these 3D printing technologies, which allow you to your point earlier, Kent, to create a prototype in a week or two. The tools that we have available now to create prototypes, they don't take 6 months. It takes 6 days to design, to model, to run it through a 3D printer and take it into a cadaver lab. It's amazing.
It really is.
I'm curious to know, and that's where I see technology and different problems being solved. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, completely. The company that I think is on the forefront of innovation and looking into that AI and machine learning and 3D printing and robots and navigation and all that stuff. And I don't want to get too in the weeds of name dropping companies, but Restore 3D has changed the landscape of how we think about a lot of things. And it came through smart people working really hard and thinking about things differently and developing new technology and taking advantage. They were one of the first ones to really start taking advantage of AI. And I've done hundreds and hundreds of cases with them. And the other companies, they're trying to follow suit. I think the writing's on the wall. And I've been with that company since the day we started. And what's developed in 5 or 6 years is mind blowing. And we never even thought this was going to happen. And now it's Ken Gall is an incredible guy. It was in his brain. I even told him one day, that's not happening. And he proved me wrong. So,
and you nailed it. I think we're seeing this. We see that the big dogs tried to dabble in the idea of personalization. That's what it's called. Nobody uses the word customs anymore. Okay. That's history. It's actually a bad word because so many of the companies for so many years tried to do customs and it was just, I don't know. It couldn't be what it should be, but personalization through what Restore is doing and others is definitely an interesting thing. I think one thing, Mike, that I'll throw out in the name of robotics is I can't wait for the day when we move on to 2.0, 3.0 in the robot world, and 2 main things happen to this: miniaturization plus integrated intelligence.
yes.
When that hits, bro.
Well, there's that whole data piece. I'm curious to know, Kent, where do you think the ability that these platforms, these robotic platforms and AI, what can we do with the data that will help solve new problems?
Yeah, I think that's a great question to think about, how not just how we can use it, but how that data can then improve how we do things in the future.
Right.
And that's the broader definition of machine learning. And Stryker is really a leader in this space. I don't have much relationship with the other companies, so I can't speak to it, but I'm sure they're doing it as well. And if, to your point, if you can make a robot smaller and integrate it, that would be slick. And what I would love for us to be able to do, and I'm actually doing this now in my own practice, is that I developed a total replacement where we've made iterations. The first one was okay, but we learned and we pivoted and we changed it and we changed it again. And we're like on 3.0, and finally, after 10 years, this is talking about the pain of time. We got it dialed in. It is perfect. It's an incredible replacement. I'm sorry, I'm not trying to gloat here. And then we're actually making more iterations and more versions. And it came through trying to learn every step of the way, getting that data you're talking about, and then talking to engineers and talking to product developers and being very critical of everything and take that data and use it instead of just being like, it's okay, we can make it a little bit better. And so what I'm doing now at every ankle replacement that I do, I get a CAT scan post-op. I definitely get one pre-op for planning because we use custom cut guides for the replacement, which one day will be replaced by a robot, just like a knee. And then I get a CAT scan post-op, standing CAT scan post-op. And what I'm doing is, I'm looking to see if the implant and the bone grew together like we wanted to get that osteo-integration. But also I'm looking at the alignment of the implant and did my surgery match the pre-op plan? Did I put that tibia and that talus where I was supposed to? And one, I'm doing this to be self-critical, to try to be a better surgeon and learn. And then two, like, is the pre-op plan and my post-op plan, did they match? And was it right? And if it wasn't, then the pre-op plan needs to be adjusted to take that data like you're talking about, and let's make the next plan better. And that takes time and diligence and patience and curiosity. And I don't get paid for any of this. It's humbling to look at some of these things and realize, like, man, I didn't execute like I thought. But to be an innovator and a leader, you have to have some humble pie, and you have to think about things differently. And you do got to take that data and use it. And I think it's a very important part of the piece, is transferring it forward, like you mentioned.
Yeah, there are still a lot of known unknowns. We think we have it right. We think we know what the proper alignment should be for a total ankle or a total knee or a total hip.
Yeah.
But until we collect that data and look at it longitudinally and do what you're doing, for example, taking it. At what point do you take that weight-bearing CT?
I do it right around 4 months post-op, when the patient's truly walking in a tennis shoe, normal gait. If they're not, I'll delay it a month or so. But that's my plan right now. And this has never been done. No post-op CT of a total ankle has ever been done. No one's ever looked at alignment post-op through CTs. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get a cohort of probably 15, 20 patients, and I'm going to write it up. I'm going to publish it. And I think it'd be neat for us to think about things differently. And I want other surgeons to be hypercritical of their results and always try to be better.
It'd be interesting to then look at that. We're getting off track here, but now I'm super fascinated. Would you consider doing like a fluoroscopic gait analysis also to see how is the ankle joint moving throughout the gait cycle normally? Is it changed since you put in a metal and plastic?
Yeah.
What is it supposed to be and what is it now? And how close are you to restoring that?
Yeah, I think that'd be cool. We don't have a gait lab in Charlotte, but we've thought about opening one for forever. But the gait lab could be cool, or a fluoroscopic evaluation we could as well. And because in any joint arthroplasty, you got to get integration. And if you don't have the alignment right, you're going to get edge loading and then polywear and then cystic changes and then loosening, and then you got a problem. And it's really difficult in the ankle. I joke with my hip and knee colleagues. I'm like, you guys, it's easy. And I know it's not easy, but it's a different procedure replacing an ankle than it is a hip or a knee.
Oh, for sure.
And I think some of that stuff applies to like total shoulders and elbows and wrists, these other small joints that can be tricky. Yes. What can we learn from the total ankle world that we're learning and apply that and cross-pollinate to the other parts of the body?
Agreed.
One last question. So you're a surgeon as well. When you review a new technology, maybe it's not something that you've developed, it's something that was developed from a colleague or a peer or from another company that you're not involved with. What goes through your mind when you're considering a new product? What does it take to convince you to change what you're doing?
Yeah, so here in Charlotte, it's an amazing honor to be a part of innovating pretty much everything new in foot and ankle, whether me or my partners. And so I do get a very early, quick look at a lot of things, even when they're at the napkin stage. And so it's a little bit different for us here. Whether I'm developing it and I want to do something myself, or it's a new thing that I haven't seen before. I have this I teach my fellows this that are interested in innovation. I call it the 6 Ps. And I used to compromise on some of these things and well, if they don't have all 6, they get 4 of the 6 or 5 of the 6 or 3 of the 6, I'll be okay. But I've been burned too many times. And these 6 Ps have to be in place. You got to have the right people, the right product, the right process, the right plan, the right performance, and it's got to be patient focused. And if you check the box on those and you got a new product that you want to show me, I am extremely intrigued. And I love evaluating new ideas. There are all kinds of surgeons out there. There are innovators and there's early adopters. There's people who are do 100 or do a couple years and I'll be a mid adopter. And then there's surgeons who are I want 10 years of data, and they're late adopters.
Right.
Good or bad, I'm on the far stream of the early adopter. So if I develop it, I'm using it day one, it's available. And if I haven't developed it and I think it's intriguing, and it definitely, if my first instinct is, I wish I thought of that, then I am very interested in using it. So I've seen new anchors come out the last few years that are they're all suture anchors. I've seen different types of antibiotic bone delivery that you can use in the OR. That's cool. And so I guess if it fills a gap that doesn't exist, or if I think, wow, I wish I thought of that, that's my clue to say, yeah, let's talk more about this. And then let me go find a patient I can use it in.
Yeah. It's a great way to frame it. Those 6 Ps.
I like the 6 Ps. I hope everybody writes those down.
Yeah. We'll put that in the social post.
There you go.
Lessons learned. So if you're a surgeon with a great idea, tell us again where they can find you, your company. I don't know if you want to call it an incubator, but how can you help and where can people find you, Dr. Ellington?
Yeah, we haven't made a website or publicly launched this. It's been kind of word of mouth. We've helped about 20 surgeons now. And if any doc out there is interested in chatting, the name of the company is called MedTech Innovate, but there's nothing out there about it. You can email me, KentEllingtonFX@gmail.com. And as long as I'm not flying, I'll get back to you pretty dang quick. And so one of my fortes, the thing that I've been able to make the biggest splash in my career, and this was never the plan, was in the nitinol space. I've been a part of making nitinol devices for a decade, whether it's nails or staples, et cetera, and made the staples for the new staples for Stryker, which are amazing. And we're continuing to advance that. I will say that's one exclusion, and we are innovating there. It's quite cool to be a part of a big company doing amazing innovation. And that's the kind of expertise of mine and my team is nitinol. So if you got any kind of ideas with that, then but we've done everything from OR drapes to C-arm stuff to plates and screws and everything in between. And that's all led to me starting a spine company of all things. And so my understanding and experience with nitinol, we've taken advantage of that. And here I am, an orthopedic foot and ankle guy, and I started a spine company. And that's really right now when I'm putting all my eggs in one basket and all my time and energy. And it's been an incredible experience. And I think we're planning on maybe being on with you again and talking specifically about that in the future. So,
well, we look forward to that. That's going to be awesome.
Absolutely. Kent,
thanks for jamming with us.
Yes.
Hey, man, you guys are welcome. I appreciate it. And I gave a lot of things to a lot of people, but my family is the most important. They give me a lot of grace and time to do all this stuff because this is always nights and weekends doing these projects. So
you're here.
It's going to do without them.
Absolutely. That's a good shout out, man.
Thanks again for joining us on this edition of MedTech Jam Session with Chris and Mike D. Please join us wherever you get your podcasts. Thanks so much. See you next time.